My name is Devin Bartley. I'm the Assistant Director of Marketing Communications at NMHC, or the National Multifamily Housing Council. We bring together the prominent owners, managers, and developers to help create thriving communities by providing homes for 38 million Americans. NMHC, we provide a forum of insight, advocacy, and action that enables both our members and the communities they serve to help build and thrive. The overall marketing campaign, overall marketing process was we created a scoring model that use your interaction with our website. So based on certain keywords, say if you interacted with or engaged with content that was that included the word optech in it, or include the word data or data privacy or data security, we would increase your score. And we would use a baseline threshold of that score in order to qualify you for the campaign, along with other things that show intent. So essentially with behavioral scoring, what we do is we try to look for intent, because it's a lot easier to market to or to sell something to somebody who expresses intent to buy in the first place, intent to purchase. So it's pretty much a way to just retarget folks, but without having to run anything before you target them. So we determine it based on certain keywords that pretty much we see applying to that product or that conference, whether it's a educational resource, whatever it may be. And we know that for at least our meetings and our conferences, they are about certain topics. So for the same example, like OpTech, it's about operations technology that applies to our industry. So we talk about sustainability, talking about marketing, we're talking about operations. It's in the actual title. We're talking about these different topics and subtopics. And what we do is we call a list together of those topics. We curate that list, we put into our system, and it's based on what we define as the keywords that we think apply directly to that product, and that would contribute or be the driving factor of that behavioral score. We found that if we talk about marginal utility first, you have each incremental increase of any product. So say emails, you see that people derive less and less utility from it. So say you're trying to sell something to somebody and you're sending out a cadence of say 15 emails within your marketing campaign, at least the email portion of your marketing campaign, you'll see that their engagement is going to decrease because the amount of utility, the amount of the value prop doesn't really push them to start engaging anymore. After looking at that, we figured, well, instead of, we can find the sweet spot when it comes to looking for those diminishing returns, looking at what the actual incremental utility is, and say after email number 4, we see that the numbers are dropping off, and email number 5, the same thing. We try to optimize that campaign, but if it continues to drop, what we do is instead of continuing to send somebody that's not engaging with emails, we push you to other channels, so like social marketing, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Google search ads, Google display ads. So we just use Facebook as another marketing channel within a bigger and more dynamic ecosystem of whatever the campaign may be. Say if we're engaging people that aren't already living within our ecosystem or our database, we'll use Facebook for lead acquisition, first step. And the reason why we go with Facebook, say over certain platforms, we go with LinkedIn at times, but it's always great to engage people where they naturally play, so their playground. A lot of people use Facebook daily life. Some people use Facebook while they're at work. While we're not saying you should, but we're just taking advantage of the fact that you're browsing on Facebook on a Tuesday afternoon because maybe you got a lot done on Monday. You're still thinking about your work, your work environment. So what we do is we target you on Facebook to acquire you for a certain campaign. And the great thing about Facebook and why we use Facebook, say over a LinkedIn initially, is the cost. The cost of Facebook when it comes to the cost per click, the cost per impression, as long as you're targeting correctly, it's pretty small. So we go in and we optimize based on that down to like, well, we can run this on days. We know that we'll get a certain amount of leads on these days, and then we pull them into our system. And a lot of it is just Facebook's targeting is like really, really dialed in. The stuff you can target, the way you can target somebody, like again, where they play, even though you're working, but it's still where you're more willing to click on certain things. You're more willing to engage with certain things. With marginal utility, you see that, well, the law of marginal utility is the economic law that they use it often. It's often used for pricing strategies, that with each incremental piece of, say, a bottle of water, or say soda, because you see soda sold in like 6-packs, which each increase in that soda, people derive less utility from it. So they derive less pleasure from it. And you can apply that to mostly any product or mostly any email campaign or anything where you're doing a repetitive task. You're going to see that, well, people are deriving less utility from it. So there are a couple things you could do. You can stop using that channel, or stop using that medium, or price something based on the fact that somebody's willing to pay X for a 6-pack and they're only willing to pay Y for a 7-pack, and at an 8-pack, it's pretty much nothing they're willing to pay above that 6 or 7-pack. So you can pivot to a different medium, or use it for pricing strategy, or you can use it to kind of change your strategy when it comes to whatever that initial medium was. We found that it's a lot more effective if every single iteration within a campaign within email is it displays a different value proposition, your engagement goes way up, because people get conditioned to seeing new information. If somebody keeps saying the same thing over and over and over again, they're going to eventually stop engaging with you. Like true marginal utility would be the same static item with the same variables, nothing changes, and you see on a graph a slope of whatever the engagement may be. But what we did to combat that, because we know that's just a law of how people interact with anything, to combat that, we add a different value proposition in every single thing we do, or every single thing we show you within the cadence of any campaign. So you are, one, conditioned to see the new information, and two, if you didn't purchase when we said that early bird registration was closing, you obviously don't care about early bird registration. That value proposition to you is null and void. Well, you may purchase when we show you that this person speaking at the conference, that value proposition may be something that you engage on, or the next value proposition may be something you engage on. At a certain point, we're going to stop trying to get you engaged and try to push you to another channel or another segment of folks that are keep being engaged in a different fashion, because we know that, okay, all these value props are doing nothing for you. Maybe you're just tired of seeing our emails, so let's try to engage you somewhere else.
Beautiful.